Okay, so the bike that's featured in today's video is out there. We're in the conservatory that I built over the summer. And I got it from my friend in Birmingham who clears out storage units. And he's provided me with much more stuff. Some of which is quite interesting, so I'll take you through that first before we go on to it. First of all, we've got this number plate. This was all free, by the way. I paid for the Jawa, and he just said, all this stuff, you can have whatever you want, basically. So I did. Let's sit down. Right. So, firstly, one of the side panels for the Mini Maxi. He's got the other one somewhere in storage. Hasn't found it yet, but it'll show up. Maxi instruction manual. Oh my god, one of the kids has put a bit of cucumber in here. What's that all about? Vile creatures. This is for your rally grifter or rally chopper in the 70s. It's like a sort of little siren kit with a big, how big is that? 50 watt siren on it. So I assume you power it off like a small battery, a small lead acid battery or something. And yeah, you can go around making your police car noises or animal noises. And it also has a little microphone with it, which is quite cool. So you can use it as a loud hailer, like put your hands up, you're surrounded or something like that. I'm going to get rid of this bit of rancid cucumber before it infects everything. And on the same vein, we have this monster. I don't have the bracket for it, but it would have gone on the handlebars of your old rally bike when you were a kid in the 70s. It's got a horn built in, and it's a radio. It's not going to do.
Race director for a 5k race.
There you are, look. So you can drive along and listen to your favourite football team, Aston Villa or something, in 70s Birmingham, as you're burning around on your rally grifter. We have a Pook carb. I've not really checked it out yet. Yeah, it's a 14mm Bing. So if you remember, the Mini Maxi has got a non-proprietary carb on it, or a non-standard carb on it, a Chinese copy. So we can maybe cannibalise it to fix this one, or perhaps just refurb that one, or I don't know. I've not checked it. It might not have the float in there. You can see someone's been in there. It might not have, you know, the throttle slide and things in there, but it's all a start. We have some funky dust caps, metal dust caps. What's that off then? I think that might actually be off the panel for the Jawa that you'll see in a minute. The lift-off panel had that was separate, and that was in a storage unit, so I wonder if that's part of it and it's fallen off. But we'll get to that. Pook keyring, a little magnetic dish, a generic Chinesey looking petcock, which I'm sure we'll have some use for, complete with sediment bowl, a questionable battery. I don't know if that'll work or not. We'll just chuck everything in here. I'll show you the other main prize that isn't actually a moped, and then we'll get on to the big ticket item. So this is for my stepdaughter, who is 9 and loves sharks and things. Absolutely obsessed with predators. We have a taxidermy piranha. How cool is that? His name's Frederick, apparently. She absolutely loves it. But her mum hates fish, and most people aren't a massive fan of taxidermy, are they? So he's been relegated up onto that shelf. But the only problem is he sort of revolves like a weather vane. See if I can get you around the other side of him. His eyes look horrific as well. They obviously didn't take his eyes out before they dried him. But yeah, that is Frederick. I feel dirty just touching him, actually. I've only really touched the wooden block at the bottom. But yeah, he lives up there and enjoys it, I suppose. Right, let's go out here. Here we have an Ebco UCR30 e-bike. It's a current model, stocked by Halfords at the moment for, I think, £1,300. I do have the back wheel, it's in there, I'll get to it in a minute. I don't have the seat, I don't have the battery, and I don't have the charger. But the rest of it, it looks like it'd be perfectly fine as a normal pedal bike. Everything's in fairly decent working order. I've covered it up with carry bags because it's out here, but it does have like a control module on it as well, with a display and everything. Trip computer thing. It's all very smart and swish. There's the back wheel for it. And then down here, he also gave me this electric star scooter. I would get it out for you, but it weighs a ton. In fact, it weighs more than that Jawa, I think. Possibly more than me. It's an absolute monster of a beast, which leads me to think that it's still got the batteries in it, and still got the, well, you can see the motor there. I think the batteries are underneath the deck. It doesn't have the back wheel, and I think that's all that's missing from it, except the charger, which he does have somewhere. That seat clips onto it as well, so you can sort of ride it sat down or stood up, you get the choice. I haven't found much about these. I've been looking for a rear wheel for it on eBay. Nothing really's come up yet, so I don't know how well we're going to do with that one. I may be able to take the battery off that and use it on this. I have thought of another way of doing it involving drill batteries, which I think are 36 volts. So 2 drill batteries in series would make 36 volts. I'll have to see if I can get a pin out for that though. But yeah, so possible viable projects. Now, it's not many times I'd look at a scooter and think, wow, that's a really, really good looking bike. This is a Jawa Pionyr Typ 05, and I think that is a definite contender for, you know, really beautiful looking scooter. This one obviously has seen some action at times. It's a Hungarian import from 2015. As I said, originally a 1966 bike. It's got a 3 horsepower 50cc 3-speed motor in it. It was last on the road, I believe, according to these tags, in 2008. So that means it's probably had a good 10-11 years off the road. As I said, it was imported in 2015 and it's done nothing since then. It's sat in storage units indoors. And here it is. Fantastic looking thing. It says on the VIN tag the year, which is something that I love about Jawas. Which makes it a lot easier to date. I think you do still need a dating certificate to get a logbook. However, the previous owner has found the Hungarian logbook, which he's going to post to me, I believe. And we've got the Nova form as well, which is a really important document if you're importing a bike into the UK, because it says you've paid your taxes and you can't register it otherwise. So, as I said, 3-speed foot change. It's quite a strange little situation with the gear changer, because the actual lever coming out of the engine is on the top and there's sort of a linkage goes to it. It's missing the rubber bits off the footboards, 1 on each side. These are, I think, £2.50 each, something like that. So, I mean, it's basically complete, I think. From what I can gather, it just needs a bit of tweaking. I love this rack on the back as well. It's a lot sturdier than it looks, and there's a lifting handle on the back too. There's the other missing strip there, or the gap where the other missing strip would go. It's direct chain drive. I think that sprocket's seen better days, so I'll have to put that on the shopping list. It's got a side stand and a centre stand. The centre stand seems to move forward too far, so I think there's maybe a stop missing or something like that. But it does hold the bike up. The petcock has got literally no markings whatsoever, so I'll have to work it out. And there isn't a great deal of travel on the Kickstarter, and it does seem to interfere a little bit with the brake pedal, so perhaps something's bent. Got clutch. I don't know what this switch does. It might be headlight, high-low beam. I'm not entirely sure. This is, I think, the headlight and ignition switch. No key. Here's your mileage, 5420, and that's in kilometres. I'm going to keep the original speedo, even though it's in kilometres, because I can work it out as I go along, and I like having the original mileage. It's got rear brake is a foot pedal, front brake is on the right hand handlebar, clutch on the left hand handlebar, like a proper motorbike. So, lift the seat up. I don't know what this little tab thing here is. Perhaps there's a rubber stopper goes on the end of it to sort of dampen it a little bit so it doesn't make chunks out of the paint. There's an awesome 1960s tyre pump underneath the seat, and also the fuel tank, which smells delightful. Can't really see in there, can you? No, it doesn't look too bad in there actually, but I do not like the smell. I have put some fresh fuel in it on top of the old fuel. This apparently ran a couple of years ago when the owner I bought it off first got it, and apparently it started quite easily. I suspect I'll be flushing the fuel out, but I'm just going to try it as is. I thought that was a load of rust there, but it's actually just mainly leaves. And it doesn't come through to the other side. There is a little bit of surface rust. Yeah, I mean, look at it. It's a sturdy little thing. Jawas always seem to be well engineered and well built and made to last, which is quite cool. There's supposed to be a little screw thing at the bottom, holds this front cowl on, and then it just lifts off. There's a hook at the top here, which I think is a helmet hook. Nice little feature there. But it just pulls out of the little slot on the frame, and then you put it to one side. And underneath we have the carb, which is a Jikov, like they normally are, with a little drain pan underneath it. So when you press the tickler, which floods the float bowl, it overflows into there and doesn't drip straight onto your cylinder, which is nice. Quite a sturdy looking airbox. There's an actual element filter in there. Haven't worked out how to get into it yet. And some of the original toolkit remains as well. Not all of it, unfortunately, but we've got a rag, which I believe to be non-standard, and a spark plug spanner. There would have been, I think, a couple of other little box spanners in there and a 10mm normal spanner, but sadly not to be. There's a little bit of sandpaper in the bottom of there as well for cleaning your points with. So I suppose we better check it for spark, really, haven't we? Using the handy spark plug spanner that came with it. I do have another bike with a similar engine. It's a 1980 Jawa Type 23 Mustang, which is sort of a similar idea of a thing, but it's a sports moped, not a, well, a sports mo-kick, sorry, not a scooter. Spark plug doesn't look too bad, does it? I may end up replacing that, but we'll see. So I've decided to take the initiative and drain the old fuel out. I don't know if you can see the colour of it. Drain the old fuel out, sluice the tank out with some alright fuel, and then put some good fuel in. I may be using the alright fuel as the good fuel, to be fair, because I don't think I've got any decent stuff. So hopefully if I do that, and then use the tickler on the top of the carb to purge anything out of the float bowl that's unsavoury, we should hopefully, maybe, be able to get it to start. But we'll have to see. Let's see if you can see the colour of the stuff that's come out of here. I know the fact it's in a green jerry can doesn't help. Yeah, you can't really see it, but it's sort of earwax brown. Okay, that looks about empty to me. This fuel line, incidentally, is rock hard. It's really quite difficult to move it. It's just so inflexible. Alright, fuel tap off. And we'll fill her up with some stuff that was alright 6 months ago. Okay, so I've purged the tank with a couple of, well, probably about half a gallon of alright fuel. I've found some hopefully slightly better fuel. Not that one, that's the waste fuel. Some hopefully slightly better fuel, which is up there. and I've filled it up a bit. This seems to be a huge tank. If it goes all the way back here, it's massive, so it'll take quite a lot of fuel. I've put probably about a third of a can in, something like that. And now that little tickler button there causes the float ball to overflow into that little tray, which drops it down into there. So I'll give it a little while on that until it seems like it's running a bit clearer now. Hopefully this will negate the need to have the carb off and clean it, or at least not at first, just for a first start. It's probably still going to need cleaning anyway, to be fair, but at least if we get all the crappy old fuel out of it, it's a start. I'm mildly worried about the fact that there's a little container of petrol vapour just right above the cylinder. But that is why that's there, because obviously otherwise it all drips straight onto the cylinder itself or into the footwell. So anyway, talking aside, let's give it a little bit more. See, that seems a lot clearer now. It's not got that yellow tinge to it. So at least we know it's definitely come down the fuel line as far as the carb. I'm hoping that the new stuff has been pushed the old stuff out rather than the other way around. But we will see. I'll get the seat down. Incidentally, the seat, I think when you close, can you see that? There's a little slot there and this wire affair here, and I think the idea is that when you lift the seat up, the bit of wire runs along that groove and then drops down at the bottom, and then that holds the seat up, and then when you want to drop the seat down, you lift it up a bit and then it slides back down there. Very cool, except that somebody hasn't bothered with that, so the hinge is really wobbly and loose and it just isn't working, unfortunately, so that may need some attention. I've been holding it up with this awesome period metal 1960s tyre pump, which seems to come with it. Can I get that to work? Yeah, it's sort of going, but because the hinge is so floppy, yeah, it's just a shit show really, isn't it? Right, let's see if I can start the beast. Throttle. Does not appear to have a choke. So there we have proof of concept. I'm hoping it's just a bit low on fuel. I can't see a choke anywhere. There's the tickler, which floods the carb, but they normally, at least my big one, has got what they call a strangler, which is like a choke. It just literally limits the air intake before the carb. There's nothing like that here. So here's what we know. The first problem is that the quadrant on this is not very far, so you can see where it's been hitting the bottom for years. And you know, if it started up here and swung around to about there, that'd be perfect. And I suspect that might be what it's supposed to do, because it does come really close to the brake pedal as well. I would think logic would dictate that it's supposed to stop about here, from about up here somewhere. So I may have to see if that's adjustable. I'm not sure. Second problem is the carb. It seems like a fuel delivery problem. So when I pull on the throttle, it bogs down and dies out. This is still full, look. So that tells me it could well have a leaky float needle, which may need cleaning out. But also, it's because it still seems like a fuel delivery problem, and this is full, float bowl. It probably needs its jets cleaning out and stuff as well. So I'm going to whip that carb off, not today, but I'm going to whip that carb off and clean it. I thought I might get away with not doing it because my tools are all up here behind this makeshift fence that I made for when my little lad had his christening here in summer, which is part of the reason I've barely done anything motorbike related for about 6 months now, and there's no video, so sorry about that. So that's what we know about. Carb needs cleaning, that needs adjusting. The chain wheel at the back there, that's very worn. I've had a look, they're about 50 quid, something like that, plus shipping. The tyres I've not had a chance to have a decent look at yet. They seem pretty good, and they are Barum tyres. I don't know how you pronounce that. They tend to be the original tyres that came from the factory. I assume it's had other tyres on since it was built in the 60s, but you never know. These are the same tyres you get on Manic Corrados from new as well as Jawas. I believe, where is it? Yeah, checkers the vac here. And look, a split. So that's a bugger. They are 2.5 by 16s M10. So yeah, not so good. I was hoping to get it running enough to try running it through the gears and making a mess of the lawn, but I suspect it is not to be. Other than that, there's cosmetic stuff to do. There's a little split there. I don't know if I can maybe see about getting that brazed. But she seems to run pretty well actually, which is good. I was going to look at replacing the exhaust and things like that, but we'll come to that later on down the line, I suppose. But hopefully this will be a serviceable little beast, and you never know, I might even be able to ride it to work. I'm still not sure about whether or not there's supposed to be a choke. I can't find any evidence of one. It's a bit strange that it just wouldn't have one. Like I say, most of the Jawas I've seen have got both, and they reckon, well, certainly with the Kiavakas, again, don't know how you pronounce that, like my 355, which is a small Kiavaka, they're normally 250 or 350, but the small ones, there's a 125 which I've got, and a 150, I believe. So anyway, I digress. But on those you have a strangler coming from the airbox, which is like a sort of rotary valve, and that cuts off air. And then you have the tickler, which floods the float bowl. And the recommended starting procedure is, and when I do this, you can see how close this comes to there as well. I might have to see if I can bend this kickstart out a bit so it doesn't catch the case. But you're supposed to give it a couple of going over like that, just to get some air fuel mix in the engine, and then you turn the key. This one doesn't have a key, and then you give it a jab, and if you've used the tickler beforehand, it should just fire straight up. And then when it's warm, apparently you don't normally need the tickler. So they're a bit of a weird thing. A lot of bikes don't have them. Some Mini Maxis have them, but normally you have a choke as well. So yeah, not really sure about that one. So I'm assuming, well, I'm assuming you've got ignition on, off, and then on with lights, or you know, possibly not in that order, but basically that's the idea. This looks like a light switch, so unless it had indicators, I'm assuming this is redundant, because there's your horn on the side of it as well. I why? Nobody knows. Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't know if perhaps it's got 2 ignition on-off switches. Like I said, it doesn't take a key. It's before they put them on everything like they do these days. But yeah, so I don't really know about that one. I haven't had it running long enough to be able to check the lights, unfortunately. But I'm just going to have another go at getting it to run now. May or may not work. There we are. Oh, lights. A little bit of lighting. That sounds like it's running a bit better, actually. But to kick it over, look, you have to go past the brake pedal. And especially in these massive boots, it's no good. And you only get about 2 compressions. If you can get it to stop further back like that, you might get 3. Yeah, we have backlights as well. Yeah, I think that's it for today, I'm afraid, but progress. I love it. There have been other minor changes as well. I've still got the Clio, you can just see the front end of it there. It doesn't get used much at the moment because I'm using this. It's not going to be a permanent situation, this is for sale, but the Clio went off the road for a bit. I needed something to get around in, so I'll quickly show you around it. I'm its 3rd owner. The first owner owned it for 20 years, roughly. Bought from a Reaver. It was a fairly local car, owned by an old lady who parked it under a tree, hence the lack of peeling. But it's done 40,000 miles from new, and she's a bit of a monster, really. It's the old shape Renault Megane 1.6 automatic. There's the original first edition bonnet and grille, which looked like a Renault 19. That's my favourite thing about it. It's got central locking on a button on the inside, but the key fob doesn't work for it. So you have to unlock the driver's door manually and then press the button inside. So I'll quickly show you inside and we'll have a chat about what else has been going on. Now, it was immaculate inside. I've left some shit in there, unfortunately. Always carry an empty milk jug this time of year so you can quickly run in, fill it with hot water and chuck it on your windscreen and hope it doesn't shatter. But yeah, 4-speed manual. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it does the job. And the mileage, it should be slightly over 40,000 now. It was 40. Yeah, I've done just over 1,000 miles in it since I've had it. I've had it since June. But she's a great little beast. Let's take her for a quick ride. So, my 2nd ever automatic car. The first one being the Shogun, which I only kept for a week. Seems to go alright. The 4-speedness of it isn't amazing, but it does what it wants. I'm using the windscreen wipers instead of the indicators because my wife's car's that way around because she's got a new car. It sounds like it's got a bit of a wheel bearing going on it, so that might need looking at before I sell it. The only little problem with it is there's a little bit of rust around the rear wheel arches. It did have rusty sills as well. I fixed them for the MOT, so it's just this wheel bearing now and the rust basically. I've not been allowed to put my bikes back on the garden, so I can't get up to where my tools are and do anything up there because I just can't move around. I have done a little bit on the Maxi engine. It's sort of almost ready to put back together now. The problem I've had with it is I've replaced the bearings and seals on the crankshaft, but I was using a sandwich toaster thing, like a little toaster oven to heat the bearings up, and it's my first time doing that, and I overcooked them basically and didn't realise till I'd put them on. So the bearings, the grease inside them has dried up and gone kind of a little bit crusty and a little bit gritty, and I don't like it because I suspect that might be what killed the last lot of bearings. I think that's what that noise was. It looked like it was all gritty shit inside and I wondered what it was, and then I did it to my nice new bearings. So these bearings obviously haven't been running like that, like I imagine the last ones had, which would have pitted ball bearings inside and everything. So hopefully they may be salvageable. I could take them off and fit new bearings again and probably new seals as well, because I don't imagine they'd like being taken on and off. But if anyone can think of some sort of, I would say solvent, but something I could rinse all that out with in situ on the crankshaft that might dissolve away the grease without ruining the seals, then that'll probably save me 10 or 15 quid. But basically, I just haven't been able to, I did that in August, maybe July, something like that, and I just haven't been able to do anything about it. You know, I haven't had the space or the tools at my disposal to fix it. So that is still on its way, but I thought in the meantime we'd sort you out with Jawa and show you what's going on with that.